Hello, I'm Jordan Sherrier with AMP, and today I'm going to walk you through installing this backup camera onto your Jeep Wrangler. This camera is going to make every trip you take in your Jeep safer by giving you a full view of behind the vehicle. The dynamic parking lines are going to sense the movement of your Jeep and show you the path in which the Jeep is going to travel. Our bracket was specifically designed to minimize vehicle vibration, so you always have a stable image of what's behind you. The mounting bracket also features a zinc-infused dip spin coating so that it's protected against all of the elements. This is a pretty straightforward install, but you do have to do a little bit of wiring, so we're going to rate it 3 out of 4 pry tools. One quick note, you are going to want to make sure that your vehicle's infotainment system has a camera input. If you're using your original OEM radio, you're going to want to add something like our PAC BCI-CH21 to give you that camera input. Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and review the tools that you're going to need for this installation. Phillips head screwdriver, wire runner, ratchet, a 7mm, 10mm, and 19mm socket, a T27 Torx bit, wire strippers, zip ties, cutters, a heat gun, a plastic pry tool, a set of Allen keys, an othe knife, a pick tool, electrical tape, and a rubber mallet. When you get this kit, the camera's going to come mounted to this license plate bracket, so we're going to need to remove the camera from this and put it into the new bracket. Once you have it removed from the license plate bracket, you're going to want to go ahead and use this and these new screws that are provided. So now that we have the camera mounted to this new bracket here, we're going to go ahead and attach it to this L-shaped bracket. Now the kit is going to come with an extension piece, so you are able to configure this and bend it and angle it depending on what wheels you have in your spoke pattern. This piece here is going to adjust so you can adjust the camera to the depth of your wheels. And then we're going to attach this to our bracket. Once you have this mounted, you're able to slide and adjust all of these pieces. So depending on the spoke pattern of your wheel, you're going to be able to get that camera to sit exactly where you need to for the best picture possible. If you prefer, you can put the wheel bracket onto your Jeep first and then attach the camera. Now we're going to start working on the Jeep. Step 1, we got to remove the wheel. We opened up the tailgate here, and we're going to need to remove this one trim piece so that we can get our wire from outside the vehicle to the inside of the vehicle. Now we're ready to install the camera onto the Jeep. This bracket is slotted, so you have another adjustment point here so that you can line it up depending on your wheel pattern. We provide you with 3 push nuts. That's going to help hold this in place. Now that we have our camera mounted onto the Jeep, we're going to go ahead and make a small adjustment. Because this camera has dynamic parking lines, we want to make sure it's angled at 30 to 40 degrees. Now we're going to go ahead and remove this grommet here so that we can get our wiring inside the vehicle. Now I'm going to use a wire runner so that we can fish our vehicle side wires through that grommet we removed and plug them into the camera side wires. For this particular application, we aren't going to be using the red wire that's attached to our RCA. So I'm going to go ahead and clip that shorter, and then we're going to apply some heat shrink to ensure our connections are secure and protected from the elements. Now we're just going to go ahead and feed the slack back up into the tailgate here. The last thing we have to do before we get inside the vehicle is make a slit in this grommet so that we can put it back in and make sure none of our wires get pinched. Now we need to connect our camera to accessory power and ground. We're gonna go ahead and remove this side panel here, and behind there's a connector that we're gonna attach our wires to. Now that we've removed the 2 Torx bolts from the floor here, we're gonna need to remove a 10mm bolt that's behind this seat belt bracket. Now that we have this panel removed, we're gonna go ahead and pull back this carpet, and we're gonna expose this connector. This blue connector here is gonna have accessory power and ground in it. We're gonna make our connections here. So we're gonna have to go ahead and cut back some of this tape. We're gonna strip our wires. On this one, we're gonna go ahead and do the poke and splice method. By all means, if you have access to solder and heat shrink, you can go ahead and do that as well. Now that we've got our connections made, we're just gonna go ahead and tape them up and apply a small zip tie to make sure the tape doesn't come off. Now that we've made our wiring connections, we're gonna go ahead and clean this up and zip tie our wire along the factory wiring. So we're just gonna go ahead and pull the carpet back here and continue to run our wire along this factory harness. Now that we've got our camera wire run along our factory wire harness, we're gonna go ahead and remove the radio so that we can plug it in. There's gonna be 1 bolt behind this panel here, 1 up top here, and 2 underneath the steering wheel. Now that we have the bolts removed from our dash, if you still have your factory OEM radio, you can go ahead and just pop this plastic off. If you have something like our Heighten infotainment system installed, do whatever steps you need to do to get your aftermarket radio removed from your dash. Now that we've got the bolts out of our stereo, that gives us access to our camera plug. So we're gonna go ahead and finish running that cable that's down on the floor over here, up to the radio and plug it in. So first we're gonna go ahead and remove the glove box here to make that a little bit easier. And then we can go ahead and use our wire runner, fish that down behind our glove box, and we're gonna go ahead and grab that wire. So now we can go ahead and take our wire and attach it to our wire runner. That way we can pull it up into the dash to plug it into the radio. There's some harnesses underneath the dash here, as well as over here behind the glove box that you can zip tie your wire to make sure you keep it out of the way. Now we can go ahead and pull our wire runner up through the dash. And once we have our RCA up here, we're gonna go ahead and connect it to the camera connection. If you don't have an available camera input, this is where you could install our PAC BCI CH21 and give you that input. Now that we've made our camera connection, we can go ahead, put our infotainment system back in, and put the dash back together. And that's all that it takes to put this backup camera onto your Jeep. Hope you enjoyed the video and thanks for watching.